Week number 2 of the Echelon Racing League as our pro men get ready to roll with our para-athletes as well to kick off Momentum Indy for the second stop of Season 3 of the Echelon Racing League. Brad Soner here with Lauren Hall as we reunite for another season of Echelon Virtual Racing. Lauren, so excited to be here and excited to have more of these great in-real-life courses and in real life events back. We started with the Sunny King Criterium last week, in week number 1, setting off a full schedule that will really take us all the way through February with our Echelon Racing League championships. It is so cool to be back in the virtual booth with you.
It is good to be back, Brad. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to a great season this year.
Here's your schedule for Season 3 this year, starting with our ERL Championships, or ending with the ERL Championships, I should say, in February on the 25th. That takes us starting in, our first race last week all the way through December, January, and then ending things at the end of the season in February on the 25th. Now, before we get into talking more about this week, I want to go back and talk a little bit about last week as well, kicking off for our pro men, where we saw Mason Roca take a huge win in the Sunny King Criterium. Roca ended in a field sprint with the group. This one much different than the Elite Women, where we saw Jackie Godby dominate. But Lauren, when we don't have a clear breakaway favorite in races like this, it makes it really, really interesting. We saw plenty of breakaway attempts, but in the end, it all came back together, and we saw a select field sprint, in my opinion, the most exciting way to finish a virtual race.
And that seems to be the theme for the men's racing, kind of going over from the last year to this year, is these breakaways, they try, and then it just ends up coming down to a field sprint, and Roca just taking the win.
You can see a visibly sweaty Roca putting everything he had into that final sprint. Ended up with a pretty good gap on the line. It really came down to timing in that final sprint with a little bit of an uphill at the Sunny King Criterium. Be a little different today here at Momentum Indy. They're doing the Mass Ave course just a little bit shorter out of the final corner. So a rider like Roca is going to need to go maybe a little earlier or try and get that gap heading into the last corner. So we'll see if the timing plays into the way that Roca is able to sprint or race. Going to be very, very interesting out there. All right. In addition to the Sunny King Criterium, obviously the Momentum Indy host of 2 days of great racing, including that very cool Mass Ave crit that we're going to be racing on today. One of the best parts about this past year was that a lot of these events were able to live stream their in real life events. So the very same course that these riders are going to be racing on, we got to see coverage in real life last year on Outside TV. By the way, that replay is still available. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now to watch a full replay of both the pro women's and pro men's race. This is the last lap of the pro men's race this year, where we saw Best Buddies dominate. Lauren, look at this train on the front. It's hard to do this on RGT, but it is a pleasure to watch it happen in real life.
No doubt. And what better way to kind of keep you motivated with Echelon Racing League this winter and then to scan it and watch it live? I mean, that just totally gets you fired up for next year. I don't know what does.
Great way to kind of train alongside watching the pros race this one in real life. We got to see a battle between Legion and Best Buddies, along with some Miami Blazers riders up there, and of course the omnipresent jerseys of Project Echelon. That's Brandon Feary, Project Echelon rider in the green jersey there, who is leading the points competition in the American Criterium Cup, which this is the penultimate stop of in the Momentum Indy. It's our second week of racing here in the Echelon Racing League, but in the end we saw a domination from Best Buddies. You see them post up 1, 2, 3, 4 guys with hands in the air. That's a good win right there, Lauren.
That's a team win. When you're posting up 5 people back, that is, they knew they had it in the bag. That's always fun to see.
Highly encourage you to go back and watch that one on Outside. Again, you can scan that QR code right now. We'll put that up a few more times later on in the show as we get ready to get our elite men's race underway. So there they are in the Zoom room, sponsored by SIS, inside the 15-second countdown. And now they all start ramping up the power here, Lauren. We've seen a lot of these starts on RGT, and one of the unique things about virtual racing is the way that they get these underway.
Go from the gun, you have to, because that basically just sets your watts per kilogram, and they kind of settle in after a lap or two, but it's usually this first couple of minutes, it's just all out. And that's the name of the game, isn't it, of virtual racing.
Already, little gap out of the gate here. See a few riders into the red zone with our RGT power meter in the upper left-hand corner presented by Saris. You'll be able to see the different power zones that these riders are in. Lorio on the front here into pretty much his maximum power zone going early. But this is like a group ride, Lauren, when everyone starts. We all start in the red zone for like the first 10 minutes, and then things calm down eventually.
Hopefully, for sure. Yeah, you kind of, like I said, just start off the line, got to get going, got to get up to pace, up to speed, and yeah, then hopefully these guys can kind of settle in a bit and get the nerves. This is racing, and so there are still a little bit of race nerves, even if you're at home on your trainer. You still you want to win, and yeah, setting the tone early is important.
We saw last week, patience paid off. It was really the riders that we didn't see much of early on in the race that end up at the front in that final sprint. So I'm looking at some familiar names on this list, but it's not really the guys at the front. It gets really, really interesting out there when we see breakaways, because oftentimes it's an all or nothing move if you're trying to make a break in RGT. I guess just like in real life, you're either going for the breakaway or going for the sprint.
Exactly. Again, though, there's race tactics here in the virtual world. It's all about fitness as well, and how people are coming into the virtual season. So I'm just so glad to be back to look at this screen, to see these guys again, giving it a go, and all the teams, and yeah, it's just good to be back on the mic with you guys, and I'm looking forward to the season.
A lot of familiar names in ERL Season 3 from Seasons 1 and 2, but also some new names like Verslees here. He's been very active in ERL. We had some group rides as part of Season 3 as well. Rode a really strong stop 1 at the Sunny King Criterium, so Verslees is back to his old tricks here off the front, keeping things interesting, keeping things tough for these riders at the back as he goes into his almost capacity here. We're looking at some numbers on the screen showing his current data. And Lauren, if you could just frame what 500 watts is like, or more accurately, let's say frame what 6 watts per kilogram is like.
That's kind of taking one for the team. I don't know if he's been watching Jacqueline Godby for a while or not, but that's definitely her MO, isn't it? So yeah, this is essentially, if think about track and field, and this would be like a sprinting for a 200-meter track and field race, but doing it for a substantially longer period of time. So it's all about how long can this guy do this? I'm not quite sure, but this is good for setting up his team.
Verslees definitely going to need a little bit of company up here. You see Zach Gregg, the American with Project Echelon, doing 6.5 watts per kilo trying to get up to him. Give him a little bit of help. He's saying, I'm willing to contribute, but you got to wait for me. So an American and a Canadian trying to link up here.
And Zach Gregg being known for a time trial specialist in real life, I think if he could bridge up to Verslees, this would be really great for these two guys and for their teams. But I don't know. I don't think Zach got the memo early to say, hey, we're going to go from the gun. So he may not be a little bit happy in no man's land back there.
Well, and this may take more than 2 guys. That's it's going to be a tough one at just under 28 kilometers of racing remaining. Verslees going to need more than Zach Gregg, I think, to survive the entire day out there today. So let's see if anyone else can bridge up. As these guys work through their first lap, we're also getting ready for our first para start of the day. One of the very cool things about the Echelon Racing League are paracycling classifications. We race them alongside the men. They'll be racing on a slightly different course. The para athletes requesting some longer, smoother courses last year as opposed to the short, fast criterium courses that our elite women and elite men are doing out there today. So para riders getting ready to take off from their start here shortly, and we'll check in with them here in just a bit. There you go. So you'll see both hand cycling and paracycling races take off at the same time. They're racing on the same course, but in different virtual worlds. So at the bottom left of your screen will be the hand cyclist, and then I believe it'll be paras down in the bottom right.
Again, the beauty of virtual racing they ask, and we can deliver any kind of course that they would feel more suited to them. And I just think that's the beauty of virtual racing, isn't it, Brad? Just the ability to just change on a dime and at request.
Hand cycling staying together on the left. Looks like Porter getting himself a little solo gap here on the right in the paras. And Porter going to continue with the gap here. McDonald and Bernier trying to chase on. They're doing a nice job working together. That's Charles McDonald and Joe Bernier back in second and third here. But Porter putting them on notice, knocking out the first one. Meanwhile, in our hand cycling competition, last week's winner, Sander Kuhlman, sitting in second place right now as Kavalainen takes over on the front. So maybe a little upset brewing in the hand cycling.
Again, it's all about the start, isn't it, Brad? I mean, it depends on who's warmed up and maybe who may potentially has not, and then who can jump off the gun like this and kind of go ahead and set the pace and then settle in. Brad Versluis is still off the front here, and still got a pretty good gap to anybody chasing him, essentially. We see Zach Greggs basically sat up and gone back into the peloton, and now Kellison's coming up and giving it a go and having broke on his wheel. See if these guys can't bridge up.
Oh, this is a dangerous move. The national champion of Mason Roca, and obviously a week one winner as well. Nice to see Brian Kellison up there as well. Kellison out of San Diego, California. Also a national champion in the men's 45 to 49 age category. And then Tim Rugg trying to bridge up here. Riding with a new team this year. And looks like he's going to join this group of four here. This will be a dangerous move on the front of this race. All these guys at 70, 80 meters back, they need to start thinking about whether or not this move has the legs to make it.
Now we have something brewing. Now we have a good break if these guys can kind of work together. This kind of basically puts the next team, Project Echelon, I would say, that has another group of guys in the peloton. This kind of puts them under a bit of pressure.
Well, these guys using the long stretches to their advantage on this course, putting in power between the corners. Let's talk about the Mass Avenue course that they're racing on here. One of the shortest courses that we'll see in the Echelon Racing League down there in Indianapolis, Indiana. One of the cooler in real life courses, one of my favorites, and just a very cool neighborhood right outside downtown Indianapolis. 3 corners is not very long, but that last sprint coming out of the last corner makes things interesting, Lauren. The cool thing about this one, only one 90-degree turn. So these other 2 in what are turns 1 and 3 make it really interesting when you're racing what we'll call a non-traditional corner. You do a lot of 90-degree turns during a season, but you don't do a lot of 110, 120-degree turns.
Yeah, a more dynamic course like that can also add to the racing itself. You're not only are you racing your competitors, but you're also racing the course. Knowing how to set up through each of those corners is extremely important, especially going into the finish and into the sprint. Welcome back to the pain caves. These are always fun to see. I don't know if you guys have been talking about this or not, but it's always insightful, isn't it, to see how people enjoy suffering at home solo on the trainer.
We've been watching the pain caves evolve over the last 3 years. Some riders moving into a new locale. We saw Jackie Godby and her new digs in St. Louis, where she's doing her residency right now. So I'm sure it's not easy to move your entire setup, move the whole pain cave. Once you get comfortable, it's just like your training roads, I guess.
Exactly. Verslu's still enjoying being off the front. His pain cave must be pretty enjoyable at home. He has definitely been setting the pace all morning, and you know, not really getting into a rhythm with these guys on his wheels. So I don't know, you know, how long this will play out, or if they can figure out each other's watts per kilogram through all these different corners. Like we're saying, it's a tricky course today. It's not a traditional corner every corner. That is part of the dynamic of racing.
Well, these guys have now up a slightly larger lead, up to 130 meters, we'll call it, with Kellison, Roca, and Verslis. These guys are going to try and roll it. I'm noticing that they're staying in these sort of medium to high power zones. That usually tells us that they're pretty well committed. So working very well together. You see following Kellison right now, the amount of watts that they're saving is listed in the upper left-hand corner of their screen. And it'll tell riders when they're in the premium draft zone, let's call it, ahead of a rider. So you can let up a little bit, or like Kellison is doing right now, get into the red zone, close that gap, get on that wheel, and that'll save more watts and save more energy for Kellison here. So that's why he's an esports national champion. You can see this guy's very effective, very smart in the way that he rides in this group. Kellison, not only a great virtual racer, he is also in the San Diego State University Lacrosse Hall of Fame. How about that?
All right. I love these fast facts. Okay. So, again, someone that basically knows how to be a good team player and knows what it takes to win.
He was an academic All-American, San Diego State University.
Keying in on Kellison right now on the top left-hand corner like you're talking about, and saving those watts in green. You can just see it underneath. Just that is crucial to winning a bike race. You know, it's just people often talking about how many watts they can put out in a sprint or how many watts they can hold for a significant amount of time. But in a bike race, it's those that do the least amount of watts usually come away in the top 5 or with a victory in the end. So it's all about conserving and being smart about bike racing, and Kellison is definitely one of those guys.
Ruggs still trying to get there. He is sitting at the front of this group, though. Yeah, well, I think he waited a little too long, and I think he didn't get the help that he wanted. Those other guys went across when the gap was only 40 or 50 meters, but now as this gap goes up to 200-plus meters up the road, I think he may be realizing that that might be a little too much. So it's going to take this whole group, I think, to work together to bring these 3 guys back. And again, 3 not only strong guys, but 3 riders that know how to work together. This is a deadly combination up at the front of the race right now. Now, these riders will be able to communicate. One of the new features in the RGT update for Season 3 is a proximity chat feature. Now, Lauren, when you're riding with a group like this, they'll be able to communicate in the main peloton, but the riders in the breakaway will not be able to hear them, just like in real life. Anytime that gap goes beyond, let's say, shouting distance, whatever the RGT developers have determined that is, you can no longer hear the riders around you. So in theory, everyone in this group would be able to communicate, but the riders in the breakaway wouldn't be able to hear them. The riders in the breakaway can talk to each other, and the riders in the field wouldn't be able to hear. So that allows for some sneaky teamwork and sneaky tactics.
How amazing is that? I mean, that is just like real life racing. If anybody's doing virtual right, it's Echelon Racing League. You can't get any more real than literally being outside than this. To have that ability now this year to basically talk to your Peloton compatriots is huge. That's kind of a game changer in my mind, because in the past, you're always not 100% sure how others are feeling or racing. And so to have that ability now to, say, hey, come on, guys, let's close this gap a bit, or maybe leave them out a little bit longer, that is true bike racing right there. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be a huge bonus for this year's season and racing league. So I'm excited to have that feature and see how it can be used to the Peloton's advantage.
How much of that communication happens in real life racing? I mean, how often do you hear riders at the front of the peloton saying things like, let's all work together and try and close down this gap? If it happens in real life, we can assume it's going to happen in the virtual world, but does it happen a lot out there in the real life world?
Yes, and not just, hey, let's work together to bring this back, but also, hey, why are you on the front? A lot of times you kind of put your head down and you get into this race mode of you just either want to go hard or you're trying to overthink the situation. So to have someone else to bounce it off of and someone that and now in this sense, virtual racing, to know what a gap can be and kind of let someone be out there for a bit and use them up essentially. That's huge, especially like I said, in the virtual world where it's a bit different, right, that we've seen in the past of how to bring a break back, or if it's 200, 400 meters up the road. In real life, that is something that's very attainable to bring back. But in virtual, maybe not so much. So I think this is going to be huge. And so, yes, this does happen in real life often.
I guess we are officially into the holiday spirit for Jake Boucher. Once the Thanksgiving turkey gets put away, it's time to bring out the Santa Claus hat. I like it.
I couldn't tell
Jake
if that's a hat
1 second.
or it's
We'll stay on. Wait. Oh, there we go. And a cameo from Little Boucher.
Family-oriented sport right here, guys. Oh, my gosh. And he's wearing his jersey. Oh, my gosh.
I love it.
Maybe. Oh.
He's got the seasonal light and everything up above him.
Brad, I can't tell if that's a hat or if that's a headband. Either way.
I think it's a hat, which is extremely impressive one way or another, whether it's a fur headband or a full Santa hat. I'm impressed either way. Beautiful family. Lauren, I can only imagine what it's like coming off of a holiday weekend for a lot of folks. That involved travel and maybe more calories than they were used to. Is it tough getting back into training, racing after a big weekend like that, or are you running at such a high level at this point in the season that it doesn't really matter? Can you take a couple days off?
Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes to be back pedaling is a godsend. It's you're back to your happy place, your comfort grounds. But yeah, the emotional stress at times can take a little bit out of your legs that you may not realize. But I think for the most part, everybody's probably excited to be back. There's some good racing coming up. Last weekend was a great race. So, I think for the most part, everybody's starting to settle into the season and ride into the season potentially. So it's good to see these guys kind of taking it to the race right now. Yeah, it's bike racing at its best.
These guys skipped the dessert table over the weekend.
Or, I don't know, because it's watts per kilogram, maybe they wanted to add on just a little bit because this is more of a flat course today. A couple more kgs, no big deal on the trainer today.
Back to the front of the field, our chasers with Claes and Hill working together. Bjorklund also up there. Starting to see some strong names coming forward here, including Echelon Racing League founder Eric Hill, who somehow still finds a way to get out here. This guy, I swear, never sleeps. I get emails from him at all hours of the morning. I don't know how he possibly finds time to train, let alone race in the Echelon Racing League, hanging with the group here.
Right, and he has a great family, a great father. So, like you said, I don't know how this guy has the time, but he makes the time, and he's got the energy and the passion for sure. I think whenever we get these emails, we definitely feel the love that he has for the sport. So it's good to see him here leading the charge for Project Echelon.
Well, speaking of making it happen, this is also a new pain cave for Hill here. So I wonder if he's traveling for the holidays, taking the show on the road here.
Finish today's race, have a little ping pong tournament. Brad, I love seeing all the different countries here. This is a bit World Cup-esque if you've been following. I don't know if you've been following the Men's World Cup or not, but I mean, to see all the different countries here represented, I think that's a testament to the Echelon Racing League and how good this platform really is for bike racing.
Yeah, certainly seeing a lot more international riders coming to the Echelon Racing League. This one really emulates real-life racing, I think, better than any other platform out there. That's where RGT, the platform that we're racing on today, really shines. The ability to race real-life courses like Momentum Indy here. An awesome training opportunity, too. We've been seeing a lot of riders coming from the virtual world and then trying out racing in real life. It's a great chance to see what that power output is going to look like if you're going to do a crit like Momentum Indy.
Also looking at some of the rosters, I feel like we have a strong showing and presence for triathletes. Again, maybe this is more conducive to triathlete effort, more sustained, consistent effort versus in real life. And hopefully maybe one day they would like to come to Momentum, the real race, and give it a go and have us commentate them in real life.
Well, there are probably a lot of riders in the Midwest that would hope that these three guys don't show up to the real-life race this year, because if they link up, that's going to ruin your race. This is a Masters race domination waiting to happen with these three guys.
Right, and
in
so
fact,
here
they
we
could
are
probably
talking
ride at the front of the elites.
Yeah, that they're 400 meters off the front, and potentially in real life, that's right now this would be a good time for these guys to kind of talk to each other. In Discord or whatever the platform is, that they can talk to one another. And are you okay with this? Let's not let this gap get any bigger, because we have seen in the past in the virtual world that anything more than that, it can get away from the peloton, and these guys can roll off the front and win the race.
And a good look at Mason Roca, your winner last year. Back in the same pain cave. Roca races with the towel around his neck the entire time. I think that would be me. Seems like you need some sort of sweat management. See a lot of headbands out there, too, that you don't see in real life. Just has to do with that indoor riding. You just don't get that evaporative cooling. So sweat becomes a big problem for the virtual racers.
Exactly, and we have seen all different types of setups, and we've talked about the fan setup and the, the attire setup, and so yeah, to have the towel around your neck, I imagine by the end of today's event, it is used and not nice. I don't know how to put it any other way.
It's a gross sport sometimes. All right, these guys getting into some traffic here. You see down in the bottom right corner, these are lapped riders that they're picking up, and these riders are trying to hang with the group. But you see those guys placed well back, the 63 and 64. Those are their current places on the road. So these guys have probably lost a couple laps, talking about Mishan and Taroni here, but they are going to try and hang as long as they can.
Just like in real life, you kind of, when the fast guys come around, it's always a little fun to just try and hang on their wheel and just see how long and what it really feels like to be off the front, for Versluis and have that sensation. So they'll probably be dropped pretty fast.
Meanwhile, in our para and hand cycling, looks like a little bit of action going on down at the front of the hand cycle race. Last week's winner, Sander Kuman, got a little company here. Now, we saw Kavalinen last week make an early attack just like this one, but he ended up fading as Kuman had the endurance to make it to the end at the Sonny King criterion. But right now, these two guys linking up together, so this may be a little more interesting this week between Kavalinen and Kuman here.
Kuman catching a bit of a draft off Kavalin right now. Wondering if these two were working well together, pulling through equal turns. Got quite a gap on third place of Jones. So these guys are pretty much long gone, and I would guess that this is probably going to come down to a sprint with these two.
And then Jackie Jones, a little further back, sitting in third overall, the front of our women's hand cycle competition. See some really unique setups. We got to look into Sander Kuman's training area last week. It's like Jackie out in the garage trying to stay cool. For a lot of riders, that's the best place to ride, best place to train, best place to race. It's a nice constant 40 or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That is exactly where you want to be for optimal body temperature.
I learned that last year. I don't remember who we had on, but talking about the optimal temperature was 50 degrees. I had no idea it was that low.
Yeah, Garrett Peltonen told us that during the virtual tour of the Gila.
That's right.
All right, meanwhile, it looks like Bernie has moved up to the front of our paracycling competition. That is Paralympic silver medalist Joe Bernie out of the Chicagoland area. See a lot of strong virtual racers coming out of Chicago. Joe, along with, of course, Jackie Godby, the Triple X racer. Maybe it's just something about those cold Chicago winters that make them such good virtual racers.
It's good to see so many familiar names and faces back again. Jackie and Joe. It's just, love them. Glad they're back. Good personalities. Great racers. This is good racing today.
Joe trying to drop Charles McDonald here. Got a little gap. Now trying to hold on. McDonald getting back up there. Joe riding for the Athletes by Design team, another strong Chicagoland team. And McDonald going to catch on here. All right. Keep your eye on those two, Bernier and McDonald battling. Meanwhile, it looks like things starting to separate up at the front of our pro men. They have dropped the lapped riders that jumped onto that group. And Versluis back into the red zone here. Seems like Versluis is the most aggressive out of this group, I'll say. This is the guy that started the breakaway. Then it was Kellison and Roca that came up, but even now, it seems like Versluis is the one responsible for upping the tempo.
Or saying, yeah, this is the pace we're going to ride if we're going to stay away and off the front. And again, we kind of see that they're now gaining separation, they're continuing that separation from the peloton 500 meters back to Matt Zimmer. And yeah, but I think you're right. I think Versleis is essentially saying, hey guys, this is how we're going to roll this, or let's, and again, is this where they talk to one another and have that communication of, hey, let's keep this rolling, and you guys are doing great, but this is the pace that we should be keeping to stay away if you want to win the race.
See how Kellison even needs to get out of the saddle there a couple times. Normally, when you get riders into a breakaway, they should be taking these smooth poles, right, where you shouldn't really need to get out of the saddle. But I think when Versleis gets up to the front, he really puts pressure on these other guys. I think Kellison was chatting there just a bit. Not sure if he's talking with some teammates, or maybe he might be on proximity chat right now talking to these guys. You see how he's reaching down? I don't know why he wouldn't need to talk to riders back in the field unless he's got a teammate giving him some intel, but you can see the gap. So unlike in real life where you need the riders back in the field to tell you, hey, we're going hard, or this is the gap, this is the time gap, since that information's in front of you, you don't really need to get that information from the teammates back in the field. So I'm wondering if maybe he is using that proximity chat feature on RGT.
I would think so. Again, if there was any separation, he could also say, hey, sorry about that. I was standing. I'm out of the saddle. And to go back to your point of him standing up, having to, because he's in the break and maybe this is going really hard. I think it's also just to kind of change things up for your body. You kind of need to stand up every once in a while. It's good for the blood flow to your legs, and just mix things up a bit. So I think that could definitely be him talking to the group of, if I'm separating from you guys a little bit, it's not intentional.
And these gaps are dangerous. See how Versleis gets gapped off now? That's a problem because you see he's only saving 30, 40 watts right now. You can save up to 70, 80, 90 watts if he's right on the wheel in front of him, like Roca and Kellison here locked in. You see a little wave there from Kellison. But you see as he gets closer, now it's going up to 120, 130, 150 watts saved. You see in those green letters just at the bottom of the upper left corner. All right, getting down to it, 6K to go as they go back through the start-finish line, picking their way through some more lap traffic. And now the question really becomes, how do these guys play the last 6K, Lauren? If you're an in-real-life tactician in a break of 3, what's the play here?
Yeah, you still have to work together. You kind of think, okay, we're down to the last bit of racing, but if you fall apart now, they're not that far behind. The peloton is chasing consistently. You will get caught. So it's almost, hey, let's keep working this at least down to the last K and a half. But if you're someone like Versleis, as strong as he is been today, he's probably saying that, but in reality, he may try and go on the attack and kind of take it to these guys, especially with Roca being so good, national champ, winning last weekend. You're going to have to take it to him somehow. You can't just bring him to the line for a sprint. So these are all things that he's already been thinking about the last 10 minutes that they've been racing together. And again, you can't really sense that maybe so much on the trainer of how they're feeling or how they're doing, but he's going to sit there. Versleis is sitting there saying, hey, let's keep working together. But in reality, he's probably going to go on the attack at some point. And where Roca too is saying, hey, this is great, guys. Let's keep working and keep this all together. Cause of course he's going to want a sprint finish. So then you have Kellison is kind of like the third man out, and I don't know his strengths or challenges. So he's probably just playing, let these guys go 1-2 on each other, and he's probably just going to try and be the joker and kind of throw a mix into all of it.
Kellison back on the front now, opening that separation again. Now remember, Kellison is doing more work than these other guys. Roca and Versleis both saving, let's call it 30, 40, 50, up to 120, 130 watts as they get closer to that rear wheel. So you see Kellison lets off a bit, lets Roca take over. Versleis sort of seems to be one way or the other. He's either like off the back or he's attacking with a gap off the front. He's the one that I'm most worried about yo-yoing, maybe the least steady out of these three. But that means he's probably got the biggest snap out of the three of them, too.
And we've talked about how dynamic this course is versus probably what we saw last weekend at Sunny King. You've got those two corners that are more than 90 degrees, and that will play a factor into when you can't pedal through a turn and you lose all that power. So knowing how to almost load the trainer and load the system to push yourself through the corner and then maybe take a break, like all those little 1% advantages every time they've gone around this course, learning the system, learning the platform maybe a little bit better. So again, that'll play into the sprint finish.
This gap is shrinking. Remember, these guys were up to 800 meters at one point. Fourth place is now just 600 meters back with right around 3.5K to go. So they cannot afford to play these games back here. The good news is that the riders back in the field aren't chasing super hard. They're not into the red zone yet. You see 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place. Those are all blue, green, yellow, orange zones. Just a couple guys in the red back in the main field. So that's good news for these guys in the breakaway. They're not really working together back in the main group. There doesn't seem to be a concerted effort to bring these three back, although I would still have some hope if I was in that main group. 600 meters with 20 guys can all work together to try and bring three back who've been out there all day. Seems doable.
I know, but again, we've talked about the virtual world is a little bit different once you kind of get out of sight, out of mind. And I would say what we've seen in the past is 400, 500 meters, and it's almost like race over for the peloton. We're down to the last 3 kilometers, and I just don't see those guys coming back. And yeah, I think the race is right here up front. This is the podium.
Now all that's left is to sort out what order these three guys are going to stand on the virtual podium at just over 2.5 kilometers to go.
Just like you're talking, is Versluis, is he on the attack or is he just trying? I would say this is an attack. Everybody's in the red.
Kellison and Roca both locked in here. Well, different styles between the two of them. Kellison out of the saddle a lot more than Roca. So he gets up and does these little efforts.
Yep. That's him just trying to get on top of the gear, get on top of the watts. You kind of get bogged down a little bit, and so you try and stand up, push on the pedals, get a couple more RPMs going. Again, the lactic acid in his legs is just building right now. This is a quick race. Down to it.
And this is just a game of patience right now. These guys all have the watts to do it. They've all got the legs to win here. It's just a matter of when you use that power. That's the game here as we get down to the final kilometer of racing here. Down to the last 1,000 meters. This will take us in the last couple of laps of racing. Roca going all in here as he goes into the red zone. Gets a little gap over Versluis and Kellison, who is now fading. It looks like Kellison has cracked.
Yeah, I think Kellison's now off the back. There's no coming back. He tried a couple of times, and yeah, I think Roca just went on a counterattack on Versluis, and Roca's all into the finish. This is it.
Yeah, Roca not waiting around for a sprint. This guy went from a K out and dropped Versluis and Kellison. Goodbye, second and third place. This will be your winner today from 1,000 meters out as he hits 500 meters to go now. He has successfully opened a 120-meter gap in the last kilometer. This guy is unstoppable. That's why he wears the Stars and Stripes jersey.
Again, a perfectly timed attack by Roca. Versluis was just trying to make it off the front and just couldn't. He just basically got counterattacked by Roca, and poor Kellison's just left for dead in the back.
Roca looks like he's going to go 2 for 2 in Season 3 of the Echelon Racing League as he wins at the Sunny King Criterium last week, and he will win at Momentum Indy this week. Your Elite Men's winner, Mason Roca, on the top of the Echelon Racing League.
Thumbs up, head down.
Slee's going to hold on for second. Kellison will solo to third, and then looking at a good field sprint behind them for fourth and fifth place. Eric Hill at the front of this group at 450 meters to go, trying to get there. He's got the Rose Beast Mode German rider Walter right with him. Teammate Matt Zimmer right on the wheel. Hill and Zimmer have a chance to launch here, but might have gone a little early as they get swarmed at 230 meters to go. Here goes Brian Hodges trying to get to the front. Zimmer is still there. Hodges going with Hart to sort out 4 and 5 here. And looks like Gleason going to get there in for fourth. Hodges will take fifth. Sully into sixth. And then Bjarhead and Looker rounding out your top 10. Big field out there today. You'll see the rest of these guys continue their last few laps as we work our way down the line. A lot of times these will be riders that suffered mechanicals during the day. Usually it's a internet-related issue. We don't see a lot of actual bike mechanicals like your chain braking or something like that in virtual racing. It's almost always a connectivity issue. Guys like Tim Rugg here, Rugg's one of the strongest guys in this race, so when you see a name like Rugg off the back, that tells me that he maybe had some either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi issues out there today.
Brad, you're exactly right. We've seen that in the past, and it's not uncommon, especially at the beginning of the season here, to kind of, again, like you're saying, people may be traveling, not sure the internet setup of wherever you are. So, but yeah, it usually filters out through the first couple of races, doesn't it?
Practice makes perfect, as they say. You got to road test your rig. All right, as these riders continue to wrap up their last few laps of racing here, sounds like we are ready to grab a word with our race winner, Mason Roca, in our SIS Zoom room. Let's go over to Mason.
I'm here with Mason Roca, and how was the race today?
Say it again, sorry. Echo.
I'm here with Mason Roca. How was the race today?
This one, there was an early break, and I didn't think it would stick as long as it did, but our gap kept getting bigger and bigger, and so once it got out to about 100, 150 meters, I realized that the group, the peloton, wasn't really getting organized, and so we had to, if we kept pushing it, we had a chance to stay away, and that's what happened.
Yes. What are you looking forward to next week?
Geez, I haven't really looked ahead to next week. I think we got the stage race. Well, that's a whole different beast. Kind of have to block off your whole weekend. But right now, I'm just gonna enjoy this one.
A lot of pressure for that, or you just riding it out?
It's a race that's not really suited to. There's a lot of climbing, and so this is one where I'm probably not going to be in the top group. But I'll still go out and do it my best.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you later.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Send it back to you.
Mason Roca in our SIS Zoom room getting ready to try and defend what will be his hopefully third week of results in the Echelon Racing League. Roca ends the day with just under a 4 watt per kilogram average. Lauren, this is why a guy like Mason Roca, is so consistent, because he's so efficient. Look at the watts per kilogram of second, third. You got to go down to fourth place, Scott Gleason, before you find a guy who is more efficient than Roca on the day.
That's exactly what we were talking about. In racing is different than in training, is you want the least amount of watts per kilogram over the course of the day. That played out for Roca, equals a win.
See, Kellison ends the day at just 12 seconds back in third place, and then that gap ended up being right around 48 seconds back to the field, where Gleason, Hodges, Soley, Cardine, Wilson, Bjarhead, and Looker all got into a brawl in that finishing sprint. But you see the efficient Scott Gleason at 3.6 watts per kilo, the most efficient guy inside the top 10 here, wins the field sprint for fourth. So I think that really speaks to the importance of maintaining a low average watt per kilo here.
And again, kind of looking at Verslees sitting there in second, and he basically started the day, started the break, and kind of rolled it out. And we're looking at Kellison, who you're saying he's either off the front or off the back. And who's sitting pretty? Roca sitting in first place.
Well, as our pro men wrap up, getting ready for pro women coming up next, we'll also be keeping an eye on our para and hand cycling competitions. They are getting inside their final 10 kilometers of racing or so, so we should be seeing them wrapping up here very soon. Looks like Jackie Jones at 21K to go, and Bernier and McDonald at 19K, so inside their last 20K to go. 1 and 2 locked together at the front of the paras. And then looks like Kavalainen has moved to the front of the hand cycling competition, dropping last week's winner, Sander Kuhlman. So a change at the front of hand cycling this week in week 2. Nice to see some new riders on the front. Kavalainen making some adjustments from last week and looking like he's getting it right this week. All right, so right around 20K to go for both of these groups as we get ready for our pro women. We're going to take a quick break here from the Echelon Racing League. Thanks to some of our partners, and we'll have more racing when we come back from the Momentum Indy Criterium in Season 3 of the Echelon Racing League.
This is the place that's skill built. Here, highly skilled physicians never rest in their pursuit to heal, to comfort, to cure. With these hands, you'll receive nationally recognized heart care and Indiana's most leading-edge cancer care. With these hearts, with these guts, with these brains, you'll find the highest level of care in the state. This is the hope that's skill built, and it's around every corner of Indiana University Health.
Welcome back. Joe Bernier and Chuck McDonald at the front of our paracycling competition on the right-hand side of your screen, just going inside 18 kilometers to go. These guys looking like they're going to lock in all day. They did have Andre Porter with them earlier in the day, but Porter has now dropped 700 meters back behind that group. See Jackie and Paul Kilgore here on your screen. Been looking at some different setups of the hand and paracyclists. You see Jones with her hand cycling setup, and Kilgore with his para setup. There's a wave from Paul.
Nice.
Got his New York State champions jersey hanging up there.
Yeah, he's got quite the collection of jerseys up there, doesn't he?
It's just well-framed Pain Cave. I think I give Kilgore maybe our most curated award for the Pain Cave so far.
Love it. Yeah, thumbs up. That's right.
Paul riding with that PVA squad, the Paralyzed Veterans of America, one of our charity partners here at the Echelon Racing League. Big part of getting those hand and para avatars into the RGT game. They actually modeled those with perfect accuracy for the aerodynamics. We talk about drafting a lot on RGT, and so they had to model that in the virtual wind tunnel to make sure that hand cycles and recumbent bikes like the ones that Jackie and Paul would be riding would equally match up when they get into the virtual physics of RGT. So a little action happening over in our para window here. McDonald getting gapped off into the red zone, giving Joe Bernier a little taste of his own medicine. Back up to the front. And then Porter closing that gap a little bit. He was at 700 meters, now just under 600 up to these two. We'll see if these two guys wait up for him, but I doubt it. Remember, these riders on a different course than the Mass Avenue Criterium course that our pro women and pro men are doing. Para and hand cycling athletes requesting smoother courses. We put them on courses that would be more reminiscent of a road course or a circuit course so that they're not cornering as much, losing that power. It just makes for a better experience and better race for the hand and paracyclists. Watching Bernier here trying to save maximum wattage on the wheel of McDonald. Again, we're looking at what right now is a rocky power profile of Charles McDonald. You can see in the upper left corner that white line that currently looks like the stock market over the last couple of years, representing the power that these guys are looking at. They're on the Marine Corps Marathon course right now, so some of that will have to do with the parcours, but I think a lot of this also just has to do with the back and forth of McDonald and Bernier here.
Again, Brad, you got to wonder if they're in the proximity chat together of just talking, let's try and roll this out as smooth as possible, and like you said, maybe the course has a little bit to play with that. But yeah, to have these guys off the front, 600 meters ahead of Porter, this is a good race.
McDonald got a little gap here over Bernier at 15 kilometers to go. Bernier's struggling. He's into the red zone here, trying to close down the gap.
Just when I say they were going to work together. What do I know?
Porter is really the only guy that they need to work against. So unless they were worried about losing third place or third place catching them, I guess there's not really much chasing behind him. I think McDonald just wanted to let the horse out of the stable a little bit here.
He's got quite a ways to go still with 14 kilometers left. That's a lot of bike racing, and we see Bernil definitely into the red right under his name. You can see that lion turn colors. So he's making the attempt to come back at times, but I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Bernier back on. Jones trying to get there as they go just under 15K at the front of the paras. Keeping an eye on the start of the pro women, getting ready to take off here shortly, where we'll watch Jackie Godby trying to defend her week win. Let's go back and take a look at how things played out in week number 1 of the Echelon Racing League for our elite women. Things started at the Sunny King Criterium. You see a strong field of riders returning, including some familiar names from Season 2, but maybe none more familiar than the Stars and Stripes jersey of Jackie Godby, who got things started early from 33 kilometers out. We saw Godby get to the front of the group and start to put the pressure on the rest of the field. Nobody could go with her once she got a gap. They watched her roll away, despite their best efforts from riders like Aaron Ayala, who had become a major player later on in the race. Godby ends up with a massive gap off the front and never looked back, as is the story for most of the races that we see Jackie Godby racing in. She'll be training for the ESports World Championships coming up, along with the National Championships. But first, she's got to get through a few weeks of Echelon Racing League. So Godby held on to solo her way to another win from right around 30 kilometers out, but some good training for the reigning national champion. But more importantly, the field sprint behind her turned into one of the best sprints of the Echelon Racing League, where we saw Aaron Ayala finally get the field sprint that she had been hunting for. Went from about 300 meters out with a very strong group. You see names like Pjarhead, Balkenhorst up here. Bronwyn McGregor also put in a big dig to try and set up Ayala. But in the end, Ayala wins the field sprint to take second place. She picks up a podium for her Velocity Vixen team. A big, big result for that squad and that rider. Aaron Ayala visibly exhausted after her finish on a very tough day at Sunny King. So I'm really excited to watch Ayala back this week with a little bit of confidence watts from week number 1.
Brad, I was looking at results from last week, just trying to catch up and what I missed, and it was almost, I didn't even need to look at the women's race to know that Jackie Godby definitely dominating. Watts per kilogram. This lady, she is tough as nails. So goes from the gun. 4.4 watts per kilogram over the day. Just a stud.
And there is your field getting warmed up as we get inside 30 seconds to our next race start. And again, got to ramp up the power at the start here. Nobody knows better than Jackie Godby on the corner of your screen. And once you see these riders get out of the saddle, you know we're inside the final 5 seconds to the start here. And already, Godby with a little gap off the front here. The German, which I think is going to be Kristen Miller, going to stay with her. So Godby might have a shadow out there today if she tries to get away early.
again, just like the men's start, it's crucial to have pretty good start and then try and settle in a bit and see kind of what the peloton's doing or thinking. But I think we know by now, season 3, how Godby loves to race her bike off the front, go hard, stay hard, and just go into the finish as fast as she can. And I imagine today is no different.
Well, it's really become a question of not if, but when Godby gets the gap. We know that she's going to go, and there's really nothing you can do once it starts. It's kind of like watching an avalanche. You're not going to stop it. You're really not going to get out of the way, so just let it happen.
Try and hang on as long as you can.
It'd be interesting to see if the proximity chat of Season 2 changes things for Jackie Godby as well. It's always been Godby against the world in these Echelon Racing League races, but now that the world can communicate with each other, I'm wondering if maybe that'll make things tougher for Jackie Godby.
You would like to think so. I mean, we've always seen, it's like you said, it's been Godby against the peloton, so maybe a bit of more encouragement in the peloton if it comes down to that scenario again, which it did last weekend. And then you have someone like Erin Ayala also who's strong, and everybody's kind of waiting for her to go in for the sprint finish. So she has to be careful to try and – it's going to be tricky when you're trying to motivate the peloton to stay close enough to Godby, you know, maybe not to your advantage. So this is a game changer, proximity chat, and I would like to think that this is going to change up the racing in the women's side a bit.
All right, pro women still together. We also started our men's B category along with our pro women just a little bit ago. They race on the same course but in a different virtual world, so they won't see each other on the course. We're going to be checking in with our men's B race throughout the day, where looks like Stewart is leading the way down in the bottom left, with Kroll, Boscher, Jones, and Vesinen inside your top 5. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Sometimes the B races are the most interesting because these are where you get the wild cards. You get riders that are maybe new to the RGT platform. We'll try some crazy things. So we'll be monitoring this one closely. Looks like a good group of maybe 15 riders up here at the front. And the Scott Stewart keeping the pressure on up there. Meanwhile, Godby still with the group up at the front of our elite women's race. It's not a question, again, of if but when. Now, you see Godby in this green zone. A big part of what drives Jackie Godby's race strategy is her training strategy, Lauren, because it's all part of one big plan, right? When you make these efforts, how that plays into your training, the workouts that your coach gives you. There are days where they'll say you need to race like this. You need to race a certain way, whether it's very aggressively or very conservatively. Maybe you try and work on intervals during a race. So Godby is not only racing for the win here, but she's also executing a much bigger plan that she has for this 2022-23 virtual season.
Like you said, training for Worlds is quite a different race to prep for than, every weekend racing day in, day out. But going back to proximity chat for a second, this could be something great for Jackie that she could use to her advantages when she's off the front, and maybe there is one other on her wheel. She can give a little bit of motivation of, you're doing great, stay right here. Maybe I'll ease up for a couple of pedal strokes and just kind of give whoever's sitting on her wheel a break. But I think proximity chat could also be used to her advantage this year. So again, whoever's using it, however they use it, it's a good ad for the platform in everyone's case.
Godby still with the group. If this race stays together, it's going to be an awesome sprint. That is how the in real life version of the IU Health Momentum Indy played out this year as part of the American Criterium Cup, where we saw the CWA racing team dominate in the last lap of racing. Again, you can watch this one anytime you want. Just scan that QR code on your screen. That'll take you right to the replay on Outside TV of the IU Health Momentum Indy Criterium, Mass Avenue Crit. This was the in real life version where we saw DNA Cycling trying to get up there, racing against Legion. That was maybe the hottest contested battle of the summer in bike racing in our women's domestic peloton between Legion and DNA. Turned into a good one on Mass Ave, including a field sprint where we even saw a couple riders washing out in the last corner. Watch Paula Munoz right here in the blue and white jersey, right around 4 wheels back as she navigates her way through this group. Now, it looked like Legion had this one locked up because they put 2 of their riders on the front. That's Kendall Ryan in the Stars and Stripes jersey. But things get a little too heated up at the front for these 2 as they wash out into the last corner. CWA, the only rider able to save it, and they come around to take the win in that very long finishing sprint on Mass Ave. It was really cool to be able to see this one in real life this year on Outside as part of the American Criterium Cup. So a big win for CWA Racing there with a big post up. And again, you can watch the full replay on Outside TV. Just scan that QR code on your screen right there. Now, Lauren, we're going to see if Jackie Godby will be raising her hands solo again, as it looks like she has now started the process of capping this group. And guess who's there to chase her? The standout ERL Season 3 rider, Erin Ayala, leading the chase at the front of the field.
Just watching those highlights and then now coming back to today, and just like that, she's gone off the front. And the beauty is, you know, talking about the highlights that we saw last weekend, that she was so excited to win and she posted up at home. You know, you saw her put her hand in the air for victory. So, you know, it does mean a lot for Godby to win these races. You know, we're talking about her training potentially through some of these races and may not always be off the front or may not be totally focused on the day at hand. But you love, as a competitor, you love to win no matter what day it is, whether in what race it is. So, and nothing is ever given. So, you know, Godby has definitely taken this race by the reins today and is off the front.
Back into Ayala's training cave here with her Tour of America's Dairyland trophies in the back. And then last week we were trying to figure out what was on the phone. I think it's just Spotify, but I don't think our cameras are good enough to figure out what she's listening to.
I bet you're right. That does look like Spotify. Got the speaker right there.
Any favorite training tunes in your day, Lauren? Anything blasting in the team van or anything like that?
Secrets, can't tell. No, honestly, anything upbeat, a ton of techno, dance music, anything to kind of keep the mood and the vibe light and happy and, you know, ready to go, kind of get that confidence building. So yeah, any kind of techno, fast paced something or another, I would say. Rap is another good fun one.
We have an entire video library of you warming up pre-race, dancing, singing, bopping around in the team car.
Those are olden days. We don't do those. Are long gone. Those are probably deleted from the internet a long time ago.
I saved them off of MySpace.
Don't even. Exactly.
All right, group looking like they are settling in here at right around 24 kilometers to go. Lisa Chrome giving herself a little bit of breathing room here. The Germans looking well organized on the front. That'll be the Rose Beast Mode squad, another one of the dominant programs in virtual racing. We see them on a lot of different platforms.
Rose Beast Mode has been around a bit, and yeah, like you said, they've had some great athletes come through that program, and yeah, no doubt that they're basically the ones setting the pace, trying to set the tone. And again, proximity chat, this is when you could use it best and say, hey, you know, we want to work together to keep this gap, maintain this gap, keep it close, see if we can't bring her back slowly, gradually over the course of the day. So yeah, this is a good team to be near the front and on the front and setting tempo.
A little further back than maybe she would want to be. It's never good when you see him in the red zone, but Erin's a smart rider. She knows that you have to do this work now to stay in the group. Burning an extra 50, 60 watts here is much, much better than falling off the group and having it gone. So you're much better off getting into that red zone to stay in the draft if you have to, than letting the yo-yo effect happen.
Yeah, we have definitely seen historically, if the yo-yo effect starts to happen and you go off the back, 99% of the time there is no getting back. I don't even remember if we saw one race last year where an athlete was able to catch back on. It was phenomenal racing, but not likely.
Got to be up to right around 300 meters, the gap right now. As one of those German beast mode riders we were talking about earlier, Kim Miller sets tempo on the front into second position.
It's got the window cracked, trying to get that optimal temperature we were talking about earlier.
Just after 5 p.m. local time in Germany, where she is, or as the Germans would say, 1700. Miller and Ayala going to link up on the front here. Now, it looks like we may have a rogue participant in this group. The J. Daniel avatar character here, not showing up on our start list, so I'm not sure who Daniel is in this group. We're going to try and track that down.
Somebody's on course.
It happens. It happens. I can't tell you how many races I've started where we're doing our final instruction and say, all right, this is the women's category 3 race, and someone will raise their hand and say, I thought this was the category 5 race, or no, you're at the wrong start. So maybe just got into the wrong race out there today. Meanwhile, some of our hand cyclists on course finishing up here. Looks like McManus into the final 80 meters of riding here.
On a 4% slope. Oh, man. Tough finish.
So it looks like McManus going to stay away off the front here. It'll be 2K back to Kuman and Kovalainen, the battle that we were watching earlier in the day, but McManus will win your hand cycling competition. Looks like Kuman and Kovalainen going to battle for second. Gabi up to 400 meters now. Slowly but steadily increasing her gap as they go to 20K of racing to go. It's doing some light reading over the holiday, Lauren. I picked up Jackie Godby's PhD thesis from Northwestern University. She did her dissertation on design rules to control mechanical properties in 3D hydrogels for optimal growth. You know all about that.
Lying. You're just lying. I know you're reading this off of a script right now.
Well,
There's no way that that's your casual reading.
I did read that part, and that was about as far as I made it, because everything from there, I didn't understand a word of it, aside from by Jacqueline Godby and Northwestern University, Evanston, Illinois. I know where that is, but pretty much after that, I get lost on. I know the end result is a Parkinson's disease therapy. So that's part of what she's working on with her radiology residency and her PhD dissertation on design rules to control mechanical properties in 3D hydrogels for optimal neuron growth. Learn something new every day, Lauren.
In all seriousness, that is amazing work, and she is so gifted, so talented, not only on the bike but off the bike. She's extremely smart individual, and hey, you're a lot smarter just reading that than I am. So yeah, kudos.
I think my IQ doubled just by opening this PDF.
Send it along. I need all the help I can get.
Godby starting to pick up some lap traffic here, working her way through these riders. It's funny watching riders try to jump on the wheel of Godby, but when you're trying to lift your tempo and get onto a moving freight train like that, it's so hard, Lauren. Once you're locked into your wattage and you're kind of going steady, the snap from going from 300 watts to 400 or 500 watts is really, really tough to ramp up quickly. So sometimes riders getting passed by Godby will try to jump on. They'll try and sit on her wheel, but it's so hard when she passes you that quickly.
Brad, you're so right. I mean, they want to try, they want to see what that sensation feels like, but you're there for just a split second and you realize, oh wow, this is way above my abilities, and so yeah, you just call it a day and go try and get back into that rhythm that that tempo that you were set in before Godby train came smoking by.
Meanwhile, our men's Category B race at the bottom of your screen. Couple looks at that. And looks like they're going to stay as a nice 10-rider group all locked together here. Sometimes the Category B riders are a little less aggressive, let's say. Not quite as confident starting out their virtual racing career. So sometimes we'll see those groups stick together a little more than we see in the elite women and elite men's races.
Be a great sprint finish if it comes down as a group like that.
One of the tough parts about virtual racing, you really have to relearn how to race virtually. It's an entirely different skill set than just perfectly translating from the road. Sprinting is probably the most different thing, the most different aspect of racing on the road, because the way that you have to win a sprint on RGT is very different than the way that you would win a sprint in real life. So much about real life is choosing your line and navigating where you're going, making sure the door is not closing on you, making sure you're not getting boxed in. That's not really an issue on RGT. They'll create a line for you. You're always going to have a chance to get to the front if you have the power to get there. So it makes things interesting in those final sprints.
I was looking at the details of the RGT platform and the collision properties of racing is turned off. So yeah, you're right. You don't really have to worry about picking a line, and that is half the battle in real life racing. But it's good for people to hone the craft here on the virtual platform and then potentially go into the real world and see us this summer at these races. So I love both aspects of the training and racing aspect this winter here on RGT, and then hey, hope to see you in real life, at least meet you in person, and not just meet your avatar come this summer.
So we do see some hand cycling avatars in this group. These are guys that are looking to bend the rules a little bit. What they're doing is using these avatars because they have better aerodynamics, because the lower profile of a hand cyclist does translate onto RGT. These guys selected the hand cycles for the race day. I think that's against the spirit of the rule, guys.
But like you said, this is the next category. I don't want to say down, but this isn't the pro category. So like you said, we kind of get all different types of racing going on in today's race.
Got to give them credit for pushing the envelope, let's say. Testing the limits of the Echelon Racing League.
Brad, what I
all right,
love
back to our
to
elite
the
women.
Sorry
Sorry about
that.
that. Go ahead.
The men versus the women. Well, not versus the women, but you see the men's race and the women's race in the two separate blocks. You can see the power that Godby's doing, and then you go down to the men's race. That just tells you how strong she is. Just comparing the two right there. You know, she is by herself, solo. You know, and the mindset you have to have is just tremendous. And to look down and she's almost doing not 100 watts more than the men, but a significant amount more, and that is just impressive to me.
Look at the difference in the power profiles between the top left, I'll say the left and the right here. You see Godby rock steady. That is a solid, straight white line. And then look at this profile on the right in the upper left corner. It's flashing back and forth between the wattage that they're saving and the power profile, but following Jones here, you can see that profile has a few more ups and downs than Jackie Godby's.
Right, and that is a bit. I will say to the men's credit, they are as a group, right? So it's a bit harder to stay consistent. But just like you said, Godby is a metronome over there and just has this racing platform dialed.
It's one of the things that riders work on in real life. We talked about how sometimes your coach or your team will give you training objectives in a race. A lot of times that's try and produce as much consistent power as you can. And Jackie Godby proving to be a machine at that. Got the noon hydration going on. Her day jersey hanging in the back there as well. Of course, the fan blowing, and one thing we always notice about Godby riding the time trial bike, just what she's used to, what she's comfortable with. She never uses those time trial bars, never puts her forearms in little cradles that you see right in the middle of her handlebars, but I think just the fit of that Argon 18 time trial bike just a little more comfortable for her.
I'm going to see if Godby wants to come to road time trial national championships this summer. I would love to see her go head-to-head with some of our World Tour riders, just out of curiosity.
The other thing that Godby has to be careful of here are obviously the corners in RGT have to scrub off speed heading into the corner. Now on this IU Health Momentum Indy Mass Ave course, they're going to scrub even a little more speed off of the 110 plus degree turn. So Godby will have to change things up a little bit from the 90 degree corners of Sunny King last week to the 90 plus degree corners of the IU Health Momentum Indy Mass Ave course that they're racing on today. All right, as Godby continues to solo her way away, building that gap up to 730, coming close to 800 meters up the road. Want to bring in our in-real-life race director of the IU Health Momentum Indy Mass Avenue Criterium and Indy Crit. 2 great days of racing. Jennifer Svar joining us from Indianapolis. Jennifer, good to see you.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Doing very well and enjoying your virtual course here in the Echelon Racing League. I know it takes a lot for us to put together these virtual races, but you talk all the time about your team over there in Indianapolis and what it takes to put on the In Real Life. Talk to me a little bit about how the In Real Life event comes together every year, because I know it's not just you. I love to give you credit, but I know you got a great team behind you.
Yeah, we have an awesome team. You know, every year I joke after the event, I'm like, okay, is everyone coming back? And they do. They love to put it on. It's a monumental effort, but the team really comes together. And most all of our planning committee is volunteer, so it's a really great effort by everyone.
And obviously a lot more than just the bike race. We have kids races, there's the family zone, and bike party, which I got to experience for the first time at Mass Ave. One of the coolest things in cycling, if you ask me.
Yes, they are super fun. They bring the party. You know, our course is very urban, so it's just in a fun downtown space, and a little different than all the trees that you see today on the course. But it's a complex event, and it's just really like fun to experience in person.
Any big changes coming up for the 2023 edition? Anything you're excited for heading into next year, or are we just back to the party that we know and love at Momentum Indy?
Well, so we have a triangle course, which is really unique, and we may actually add another triangle to the triangle. So it would be a bow tie.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that perked a lot of riders' ears up, especially those that like the corners of Momentum Indy. Jennifer,
Right.
we're going to check back in with Jackie Godby here, but just want to say thank you for putting on one of the best criteriums in America. You are part of what makes criterium racing great in the U.S., so we appreciate you lending your course to the Echelon Racing League for stop number 2 this week.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, and we'll see you in person for Momentum Indy. That is Jennifer Svar, your race director over there in Indianapolis.
Talk about giving some good information, insider tips for next year. Hey, add to the course.
Course may be changing here. Yeah.
Another reason to do the RGT Racing Series is because you get to hear firsthand from the race promoters and all the hard work that goes into putting these events on in real life. It's unbelievable what happens on the other side of the fence, Brad. That is for sure. As a racer now on the other side, to see everything behind the scenes is impressive.
August 25th through the 27th for Momentum Indy. They've got 2 days of racing along with the Honor Major Taylor Ride out there. So even if you don't race, it's a great end to go check out a new city. If you're within driving distance or want to make a trip, we invite you out for Momentum Indy August 25th through 27th next year.
And while we were talking to Jennifer, Godby's gap has come down ever so slightly. She was at about 50 meters off the front, down to 650. I'm not quite sure if they're trying to bring her back or just she's feeling the course in the legs now after being off the front essentially for the last 10, 15 kilometers. Even though this is her teammate, basically covering this attack off the front with Daniel on the attack, and Runkanen just basically covering this attack. So I can't imagine that this is going to make it all the way up to Godby, but good efforts.
Yeah, Runkanen might as well take the free ride. Ayala wishing she would have taken that ticket, as she now leaves her group and goes solo here to try and go across to Roukonen. Now, I love this about Erin Ayala because she knows exactly what she has to do. Ayala's not here to race for 5th place. She's not here to do okay. She's here for results. She's here to do as well as she can, and she knows sometimes that means taking risks, like going into the gap here. So she goes solo across and now working her way up. Little comms action happening here.
Is it me, or is it just looks like gosh, she's so good that it just looks like she's going easy right now while she's texting a friend.
Well, she might be dropping back and maybe realizing that she's not going to make it across that gap. She's only doing 2.5 watts per kilo. So I think this is Ayala doing the smart thing here and rallying the troops for a little bit of help. See if she links up with Dora or maybe her teammate Bronwyn McGregor. But either way, I think she looked the 100-meter gap and said, not going to do this alone, but I may be able to do it with someone else.
Exactly, and then kind of looking back up to Godby's gap, back to Daniel and Ronkin, and it's extended again. I don't know if Godby heard us or just said, okay, look, I'm in the last 10 kilometers of this race now. But yeah, she's definitely upped her pace and reestablished that gap significantly to second and third.
Well, this could be a good one in that silver medal battle. Still trying to figure out who Daniel is in this group. Again, don't have any start data for him. I guess just like real life, when an out-of-towner shows up, you don't know much about them until they get into a breakaway. And then you say,
right,
oh, that's who they are.
And a good teammate knows it doesn't matter who it is. You can't let anybody get across to Godby. You never know who it's going to be, so you're going to try and stack the break. And if you're just going to sit on the entire time of whoever it is trying to go across.
I see a tiny dip in Godby's power right there. Just a slight break in her otherwise concrete 4.2, 4.3 watts per kilo. It'll be interesting to see what she averages at. And track that throughout the season to watch her average probably grow as, again, Godby doesn't really have the advantage of being able to draft and being able to be efficient out there. So it's really just a matter of how hot she can run the engine for how long.
Heart rate's been running at 179, 180 just about the entire
amazing.
time that she's been
It's
off the front
it's amazing,
track.
Isn't it?
Yes.
The cadence hardly changes either. Back to Ayala in the gap still, holding on to right around 80 meters over Crom and Miller, trying to come up and join her. You see the standings and gap on the left side of your screen. Runkinen, Ayala, Miller, Crom.
Brad, consistent power from Godby, just 300 between. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Just around 320, 350 watts. No big deal. I can't tell you how hard that is to do this for such a significant amount of time.
It's truly amazing. Anyone that's ever tried to do it in real life on a bike knows how difficult that is, but to have it tracked like this on RGT just makes it that much more difficult. Look at this power profile. I mean, look at the power history of Rukkinen here versus that of Jackie Godby. It's just night and day. Godby is in a different league than everyone else.
And Daniel's definitely pushing this pace here. Again, closing that gap back down 670 meters to Godby, putting Runkinen under a bit of pressure.
But we make it a sprint. out of this group. I don't think we're going to see Godby sprint, but Daniel and Rukkinen may go at it. And then Dorr, Hermanson, Miller, Ayala, and McGregor behind them might have a field sprint coming their way as well. Reminder, we are racing on the Momentum Indy Mass Avenue Crit course, the very same course that we had a chance to watch live this year on Outside TV. If you want to watch the replay of the in real life version of this race, you can scan the QR code on your screen right now, and that will take you to the taped coverage of Momentum Indy Mass Ave Criterium. It's one of the other things that makes the spectator experience at the IU Health Momentum Indy Crits so fun, being able to watch on the big screens out there and stream it on your phone. A game changer last year for spectators.
And I definitely remember that race very well, seeing the highlights there of the crash at the finish. And it was always the battle all summer long with DNA and Legion, wasn't it, Brad? You had Maggie Coles-Lister, just a stud of a track racer. She's Canadian, and she's actually racing track this winter. And then to have Kendall Run just putting performance after performance and winning race after race with the Legion lead out, it was great racing all summer.
Really speaks to how exciting the domestic American racing scene can be. Laura and I lamented a lot of races that I got to watch you race in and sometimes even win, but we didn't have any video and I couldn't share it with the rest of the world. So it's nice to have the technology improving. Do we still have the video of your Ghent Wevelgem win? I know it was your screensaver for a long time, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Back in the old days.
I think they have to convert it from VHS is the problem.
That was before they even covered women's cycling, so I'm a pioneer.
That's right. This is Bjarhead on your screen right now. The Swedish rider sitting in 15th. Looks like she's sitting solo up here between two groups. Tough place to be when you got no one to ride with, no one to draft off of, but looks like Bjarhead just settling in and trying to stay focused.
I think she realized that she was on camera for a bit and gave us a smile. Kind of straightened up a little bit.
It's kind of weird to see yourself on camera when you're racing. Like when the photographers pull up alongside you, you know, you kind of straighten out the glasses a little bit, make sure your jersey's zipped up.
Exactly. Straighten up a little bit. Act right.
Straighten up and fly right. All right, Godby inside 4 kilometers to the finish now. And you even start to see her ramp up her power at the end. See this slow ramp up in her power history profile here? I think she's realizing as she gets down to the end, she's trying to empty that tank. She's really pushing herself. And again, it's not about winning the race. It's about getting the best workout, the best effort that she can in here. Now, power's going down here because she gets a draft out of this group, but she'll go right through them and lose all of that wattage saving. There it goes. So I'm thinking that's probably the only dip that we see. When we do see those dips in her power history, it was probably just when she was passing a rider and ended up in their slipstream for a little bit. Meanwhile, our men's B also getting down to it. They are at 2.5 kilometers to go. Kutluka and Gottlieb with a little bit of a gap up on the front here. Remember, Kutluka, an able-bodied cyclist, just selected the hand cycle here for the better aerodynamics. We're going to have to lock that out for next time.
Agreed. I'm not too keen on that, and Yeah, but glad they're out here trying everything that they can to to get the advantage. I don't know, Brad.
Well, and the other bummer here is that Gottlieb doesn't get as big of a draft off of Kudluka because, again, the physics are accurate, so a smaller, lower profile hand cycle is not going to provide nearly the same draft that Gottlieb is providing to Kudluka. So a little unfair for Gottlieb, too.
I'm just going to shake my head and disapprove.
Well, that makes that ride that much more impressive for Gottlieb, I guess, considering he did this with hardly any draft.
I will say that I appreciate the Draft Punks team name. I love what people come up with for their team names in the virtual world.
All right, Gottlieb going just outside of 1K as Godby goes just under 2K. So Gottlieb going to hold on for his win. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Daniel's made it quite the effort to make it back to Godby, but yeah, 700 meters, not going to happen. Last 3K, 2.5K to go. At 1.5K, excuse me. Yeah, this is Godby's all day. Like you said, up in the power all the way to the finish.
Oh, Lauren, I don't know about you, but if I'm a kilometer and ahead in the race and I'm down to the last K, I let off my power a little bit. I start enjoying the last 1,000 meters of racing. Jackie Godby, not so much. Still at 180, 85, and 310. Her three magic numbers out there.
But Brad, again, we were talking earlier about her training for world championships, essentially, and this could be part of training. You have to go all the way to the finish. You need every minute of training you can get. And this is Godby being a professional bike racer right here in the virtual league all the way through. She's going to push all the way to the finish.
Oh, and then we're going to have a great battle behind her. The race for second, third locked in together, and then 4, 5, and 6 going to be battling in a second group. So we'll really get three separate finishers here, as it looks like Daniel opening up a little bit of time in the race for second, but Godby inside her last 600 meters to the line, where she will pull a 4.4 watt per kilo average at 500 meters to go. Ay, ay, ay.
Good for Godby. Yet again. Here we go. Season 3.
And even out of the saddle for the last 180 meters. Give it a good little sprint to the line for Jackie Godby. She's going to go 2 for 2 in Season 3 of the Echelon Racing League. She'll win the IU Health Momentum Indy Mass Avenue Crit. And there, she finally used the time trial bars.
For recovery. Man, she,
some well-deserved rest.
Yeah, she's got such a good poker face, knows how to go all in for the entire time, and then when she can kind of let off the gas, that's when you kind of see her kind of let down, the shoulders roll a bit, she puts her arms down, stops the watch, stops the workout. Always impressive to see her race.
Looks like Daniel got the separation, and they will hold on for second place here. That's going to drop Rokinen down into third. And then Kim Miller, maybe the first sprinter behind them in the race for fourth. So we'll watch Rokinen roll in here.
Ronkanen
And
gave
then
it a
Miller,
good effort.
Embring, Dorr,
Phil.
and yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Well, I'm really watching is this group at 500 meters back, the Miller, Dorr, Embring, McGregor group. I think that's going to be probably the best finish of the day here. With the bunch gallop to the line, we'll go back and watch them.
And who do you see moving up the ranks? Ayala.
Field sprint winner last week, going to have another go at it for the Velocity Vixen team. Ayala moving up into 5th place, right behind Kim Miller here. As Ronkanen will lock in a 3rd place finish. And you see the other 2 behind her, Anders and Bjarhead. They're going to have to go around for one more as Ronkanen went a lap up on them. So that'll wrap up 3rd place for Ronkanen. And this is the real battle. Looks like Miller got the gap. He's got about 12 meters on Ayala, but they still have 300 meters to go. Here's Ayala coming up onto the wheel of Miller. Valkenhorst in there, but not a contender. A lap down. Ayala going to go past him. Now Aaron Ayala's got the gap. Miller on her wheel with 160 meters to go. Miller a little late responding to get into the red zone as Ayala opens a little bit more time. At 50 meters, Ayala going to win the field sprint again this week, and that'll be good for 4th place overall for Aaron Ayala.
Great to see that sprint finish. Aaron has definitely figured out the sprint finishes for the RGT platform.
Yep.
And yeah, another day today. Even for 4th place, it was just great to see her come across the line.
Ayala is deadly in a field sprint out there right now. Man, this is going to be an awesome Season 3 of the Echelon Racing League as we're watching some really strong performances in this release. Still looking at our top 10 making their way in. Embring, Chrome, Hermanson, and Dorr wrapping up. And then Anders, Valkenhorst, Sully, and Amante still on their way in. All right, sounds like we've got Jackie Godby in our SIS Zoom room. And let's go grab a word with their race winner from the Elite Women's Race today at IU Health, Momentum Indy.
And those were generous turns at Indiana. You know, going into today, I was thinking it was going to be a race really similar to last week. You know, flat, lots of turns, crit style. And then, you know, watching John with the men's race, I realized that we were not going to get the benefits of those braking turns. And today was going to be much, much different. And I think you saw that, really seeing some great FTP cannons from the field. So very exciting, very, very difficult.
Very nice. What are you looking forward to next week with the stage race?
Oh, that's a tough one. Can you repeat that question?
What are you looking forward to for next week? The stage race.
So I think just different types of riding again. And then I'm looking forward to the first climbing race, you know, looking forward to getting to race with my competitors and play those chess games over the mountains. Who's resting enough? Who's aggressive? Do you go at 15 kilometers in or do you hold out? That's always fun once we get to those longer races.
Nice. And what's your recovery going to be like after the race today?
Putting my feet up and eating Thanksgiving leftovers. I mean, nice. I assume that's a lot of people's plans today.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll send it back over.
No, have a great day.
You too.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and congratulations, Jackie, on another standout victory here in the Echelon Racing League. Rima Daniel ends up in second place with a 4.16 average watt per kilo. Ronkanen takes third, 2.85. There's your most efficient rider on the day. Great ride into third place. Aaron Ayala wins the field sprint for fourth with a 3.3 average watt per kilo. But I'm all about Jackie Godby's 4.46 all alone on the front, Lauren.
Just a stud, last year, this year, I don't even know what to say about Godby. She's just amazing. And then today she's, I'm just going to relax and eat Thanksgiving leftovers like everybody else is going to do. Just so casual about it. But, God, what a hitter.
Pretty much consistency at which she is able to just dominate here in the Echelon Racing League as she wraps up another win at the IU Health Momentum Indy Criterium. And getting ready for the Tour of the Gila coming up December 16th, our next stop here in the Echelon Racing League. Talking about stage racing, Lauren, a lot different than criterium racing. We're talking about 3 days of back-to-back racing, including time trialing, some mountains, some road stages. It's very different than an hour-long criterium.
It is. You kind of have to know how to go into the weekend prepared and then go each day, just like Godby was talking about, how your recovery is and how you race the race and just saving the watts whenever you can. So it's an important stage race coming up, first stage race for us. So it should be an exciting race next weekend.
And, of course, that mimics the legendary in real life Tour of the Gila courses, including the ride out to Mogollon, the cliff dwellings, one of the more iconic climbs and descents in the United States. So here's what's coming up next, the stage race from the 16th to the 18th. Remember, you can ride with the pros before and after the pro race weekends. We have a group ride on December 11th, followed by one on the last day of the year, December 31st, where we'll see riders like Jackie Godby who kind of come in and hang out, ride, sort of preview the course, and then get a chance to set up for their final races of the season, which include our January events with the next stops on January 7th and 8th before our next pro ride on the 14th. And then the second stage race of the season comes at the end of January, from January 20th to 22nd, before we move into our last month of racing in February, which all culminates with the Echelon Racing League Championships on February 25th, where I'm sure we're going to see a lot of familiar names from the first 2 weeks. Typically, if you have a good start to the season, Lauren, you can count on a good finish, but it's a long way until February. So I know a lot of these riders are going to be maybe doing a little recovery right now. You take a little break through that Christmas holiday period and then get right back to it on the first of the year.
I think I'm going to have a day like Godby. I'm going to go ride a bike, and then I'm going to go eat some Thanksgiving leftovers.
I'm with you. I think that's going to do it for stop number 2 of the Echelon Racing League. Thanks for being with us for the IU Health Momentum Indy Mass Avenue Criterium in week 2 of Echelon Racing League Season 3. For Lauren Hall, my name is Brad Soner saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you for next stop of the Echelon Racing League.